On a wet morning toward the start of November of a year prior, I showed up 20 minutes sooner for a conference with a pristine, for me, irritation master. I had absolute previously arranged the arrangement in Sept. Since I had never halted at this sort of supplier previously, and moreover, as he was from the administration where I got practically the entirety of my consideration, my clinical medical coverage important a member from my principal care specialist. This accomplished embraced about 2 months of bothering my PCP's work environment, yet 14 days before the interview was booked I at last got the green light wait by them and was told everything was good to go. All things being equal, when I showed up at the arrangement I had been educated I couldn't saw as the referral experience not, as a general rule, at any point been obtained. I had been angry. I had embraced a break from a mentoring work, previous and not inconsequential measure of pay for a discussion that currently couldn't be special through no deficiency of my own. Notwithstanding doing my due perseverance to make certain the entirety of the right records had been managed, the ball despite everything got dropped someplace from my view and that I was putting resources into an individual else's mix-up. When I got home I put in an additional 2 hours that day, notwithstanding a few hours every day for the accompanying a few days, hoping to get to the base of what experienced occurred. This joined situating various calls to my fundamental consideration work environment alongside their partner area, notwithstanding my protection supplier. Every single festival sidestepped nailed a fault to and coordinated their hands in the other, aggravating me much more. I kept up mentioning a similar concern. For what reason would I say I was exhorted I had been good to go when I wasn't? Over the long haul, I went through more than 10 hours trying to settle this issue and guarantee that the upcoming suggestion to see this provider was really refined and gotten a long time before my rescheduled visit in January. Clearly, nobody gave to remunerate me to that work I skipped. Unfortunately, this is just not a bizarre event. While this was by a wide margin the most appalling example inside my ongoing foundation, I can't tally the amount of times we have delighted in a partner lost regardless of getting told it totally was prepared, or demonstrating up in the medication store to be told they never got the specialist recommended my primary care physician reference they brought in. This truly changes the medical clinic execution audit. An unpredictable assignment that doesn't spend and does cost. Having a drawn-out medical issue is its own one-of-a-kind low-maintenance work that is unquestionably indistinguishable components regulatory and investigator work. What hours aren't spent at real social insurance visits accepting fundamentally required consideration or analytic testing are frequently devoted to mentioning and finding suggestions, medicine tops off, scanning for test results and the things they infer, and requesting hold fast to up clinical well-being guidance from suppliers. Much the same as the occasion last November, I am frequently expected to work as the course between my suppliers and my protection supplier, rather than them conveying straightforwardly to one another. For the greater part of us in the Steady Ailment Neighborhood Network, this is a very familiar story. As perceived in a Harvard Undertaking Diagram article only this past May distributed by Medicinal Services Doctors with Kaiser Permanente, the social insurance industry is overflowing with wasteful aspects that add up to a ton of sat around for people. Especially, the article reviews the blog articles of the incessantly wiped-out female, Jess Jacobs presently perished, who anticipated lower than 1/10% of the time she put in getting care was centered around really managing her conditions. One increasingly frustrated individual, Sarah Cliff, additionally wrote about her encounters inside a paper for Vox a year ago. Particularly, Cliff expounds around the trouble people experience in dealing with the Medicinal Services Program, a huge site of doctors, drug stores and guarantors just as other siloed popular entertainers that appear to be determined to not talking with one another. Simply like me, Cliff takes note of this undertaking tumbles for the victims, in which it will get much the same as low-maintenance work where the compensation is lousy, the hours irksome, just as the stakes unimaginably high. Regardless of whether it's shipping clinical records to various providers or getting the primary one answerable for realizing why a protection stay keeps on being denied, people have become the clinical consideration framework's free work. As the greater part of this work need calls and visits during normal work hours, victims are frequently required to hinder or forego their expert obligations to have the option to deal with these components of their consideration. At any rate, to me, this adds to my anxiety with respect to the dependability of my clinical consideration and disposes of from time I can and ought to commit to work and thinking about my well-being. What may truly have any kind of effect? Incessant disease is in excess of low-maintenance work, yet perhaps it shouldn't be? Building up an unmistakably increasingly powerful and connected with clinical consideration technique that cultivates open-up discussion and perceivability in the middle of the entire framework related with influenced individual treatment, human services conveniences, protection strategy officers, clinical experts, and the victims themselves, can make an unquestionably progressively great final product for everybody required just as a much better standpoint for people, who can rather concentrate on their recuperating and well-being. In the meantime, there should be considerably more tutoring and comprehension among organizations and the open concerning how time ingesting the clinical treatment strategy is for people to get around, so more arrangements might be set up to help and take into account individuals with constant ailment.